Okay, good afternoon. Well, once again, I hope I find you well. This afternoon, my task is to talk about the shared pastoral duties and ranking officer and partly role of the pastor. In the morning, I talked about the pastor, his district, and the church in terms of administration. But this afternoon we are transcending. The topics are, they are related. They are related. So we are going to be talking about shared responsibilities and the pastor being a ranking officer. This topic, we are going to be covering the following. We are going to be talking about the Bible and leadership, prophets and leadership, men of Issachar, George Banner's ascension, then church leadership and administration, a few definitions, purpose of leadership, the dilemma, and Joan Nesbitt's mega trends, then the ranking officer, expectations from of the pastor, while this is working with the elders and other duties, then eventually we'll have a conclusion. Okay, I hope I'm still audible. Talking about the Bible and leadership, allow me to quote from Exodus chapter 18, verse 21, which says, "Moreover, you shall select from all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of hundreds, as it were." This is the story of Moses and his father-in-law, the advice that he got and what he ended up doing in order to be a better leader, as it were. We actually see Moses delegating some responsibilities. So we see the aspect of the issue to do with delegation right in the Bible. So that's why we are saying Bible and leadership. When you check in the church manual, yes, there is an issue of respect and officers, which says, "And we urge you, brethren, to recognize those who labor among you and are over you in the Lord, and admonish you, and to esteem them very highly in love for their work's sake. Be at peace among yourselves." Because it's coming from the church manual, but at the same time quoting the Bible, that there are those among you who are supposed to be respected, as it were. We see here the message is being directed, as it were, to the elders, to the membership. They are being urged to respect pastors and officers, as it were, because they are leaders, and every one of them is being urged to recognize them and also labor among them and also give them the respect that they desire, as it were. Okay. Still going on. What's happening now? Okay. Testimonies, volume 4, page 17, talking about the spiritual prophets and leadership. The pen of inspiration has this to say: those who hold responsible positions in the church may have faults in common with other people and may err in their decisions. But notwithstanding this, the church of Christ on earth has given to them an authority that cannot be lightly esteemed. It appears here that leaders are being selected, those who lead God's church in the context of the local church, in the context of the district. They are being selected from among fellow sinners. They do have their own faults, which are common with other people, and they may sin, they may make wrong decisions, but we should be aware that these are the people who are leading God's church, as it were. So, yes, they have their weaknesses, but they've been given other responsibilities to lead God's church. Testimonies, volume 5, has this to say again, page 238. Teachers of the truth, missionaries, officers in the church can do a good work for the master if they will but purify their own souls by obeying the truth. Those of us who are leaders, district pastors like me included, we are supposed to purify ourselves. We are supposed to lead by example, as it were. We are compelled to obey the truth at all times, not at some times, but to obey the truth. In other words, lead by example. Whatever we teach, we should be founding, doing the same. Okay? In other words, we are supposed to be exemplary. First Chronicles chapter 12 talks about the men of Issachar who were qualified leaders. Okay? Men of Issachar, they were living in their own generation. There were lots of challenges, it would appear. But even though they were living in such a terrible generation, as it were, in my opinion, we are told men of Issachar were qualified. Okay? Why were they qualified? Number one, they understood the times. Okay? They understood the times. Allow me to say, you and I, when you talk about the parousia, the second coming of Christ, we know where we are right now. Okay? In terms of time, we know where we are, and we know soon and very soon our master is going to come again. So as sons of, just like the sons of Issachar, or just like men of Issachar, you and I need to understand the times, just like those of old understood the times. So if we understand the times, in terms of our dressing, we will have to be exemplary. In terms of what we eat, in terms of our social life, in terms of our physical life, whatever we do, we need to understand the times. If I were to read First Peter, which talks about you and I being a priesthood nation, you and I being ambassadors, as it were, we need to understand the time. So I was talking about the men of Issachar, that they were qualified. Why were they qualified? They knew what Israel ought to do. Okay? They were very much aware. They knew what they were supposed to do, what Israel was supposed to do. And all their relatives were under their command. Okay? Because they understood the times. And they led, and their relatives followed. Okay? So, as leaders, as district pastors, we need to understand the times. We need to know what we are supposed to do, even our relations. If they are under us, they should know what they are supposed to do. We need sons and daughters of Issachar in the 21st century for the Adventist Church. Okay? That's why one songwriter said, sound the battle cry. Okay? The four is near. So because the four is near, someone will have to sound the battle cry. So you and I need to sound the battle cry because the time is near. We need to understand the time and redeem. If it were the New Testament, it would say, let's redeem the times because days are what? Days are evil. Okay? Having said that, leadership development is of crucial importance in our contemporary church and society. Okay? All things being equal, in our church today, in our societies today, in our communities today, you cannot run away from the development of leadership. Why? Because it is of crucial importance. Okay? George Banner has this to say, one of his writings on page 18, I quote verbatim, he has this to say, the central conclusion is that the American church is dying due to lack of strong leadership. In this time of unprecedented opportunity and plentiful resources, the church is actually losing influence. The primary reason is lack of leadership. Nothing is more important than leadership, unquote. So Banner is writing his ascension in the context of America, okay, saying the central conclusion is that the church in America is dying. And why is it dying? It's dying because of lack of strong leadership. Okay, so the primary reason is lack of leadership. Nothing is more important as leadership. So leadership is quite critical. Someone may say, but you are just talking about the American church. Why don't you talk about our own context? Okay, if you use the rule of inference, you'll notice that there are a number of things that you can infer from the American church. What is true in America is also true anywhere in the world. Okay, what you see happening that side is also true in our own context. Why? Because leadership development in the church may not be overemphasized. What you see happening that side is also happening this side, and it may continue to happen. We do have a leadership challenge, as it were. Not only that, church leadership and administration, many segments of society, including the church, suffer from leadership drought. Okay, one writer says we are suffering from what? Leadership drought. That's why one writer once said, leadership does not make the man. Okay, George Banner further asserts that the church is dying due to a lack of strong leadership. We are dying, the church is dying, not because of other issues, but because of lack of leadership. Lack of leadership. That's what George Banner is saying. So we are looking in the context of a district pastor that we need to be very careful lest our churches die because of lack of strong leadership. Okay, nothing is more important than leadership. Okay, no wonder why seminaries and graduate schools are not producing enough leaders. They are not producing enough leaders. Leaders, we have a connection, we have a relationship with Christ. We can actually say, thus says the Lord. They do have a relationship with God. They can actually say, model me as I model Christ. Okay, this is what we are talking about. Okay, how are we defining leadership in this context? I prefer operational definition of terms as opposed to at times dictionary definitions. Andrew Dublin, talking about this, as this to say, to be a leader in the context of pastoral ministry is to the ability to inspire confidence and support among the people who are needed to achieve organizational goals. Okay, so the ability to inspire confidence. Just to inspire confidence. You remember earlier on in the morning when we were talking about the duties of a multi-church district pastor, that one of the issues that we talked about was this issue to do with inspiring confidence, supporting people, as it were. All right. They further say interpersonal influence directed through communication toward goal attainment. Okay, we are inspiring confidence. We are having this influence, interpersonal influence, because we want to achieve something. We want to achieve a goal as an organization. Okay, one writer said it is an act that causes others to act or respond in a shared direction. Okay, so when we are basically talking about leadership, you are propelling, you are pushing, you are directing people in a shared direction. Remember earlier on in the morning, I talked about where there's no vision, people perish. So in other words, you and I as leaders, we need to have direction. Okay, you can actually further define it as the art of influencing people by persuasion or example to follow a line of action. Okay, you are influencing people. Okay, it's not the issue of forcing, but you are influencing because you are included. You cannot take yourself out of the situation, but you are part and parcel of the situation, and hence you have to influence. You can also say it is the principal dynamic force that motivates and coordinates the organization in the accomplishment of its objectives. You know that we are supposed to be achieving this and that as a church. And how do you do that? You need to come up with the principles that are dynamic. We need to come up with a force that is dynamic, so that by the end of the day, you motivate and at the same time, you coordinate people to accomplish that which you are supposed to be accomplishing together. That's leadership. Okay? And what is the purpose of leadership? Because you and I are leaders as district pastors. Peter Drucker has this to say on page 9 in one of his writings. The chief objective of leadership is the creation of a human community held together by the work bond for a common purpose. There are objectives, quite a number of objectives of leadership, but the chief objectives is that you and I create human community that is united. Human community that is united. That's why the psalmist once said, one of the things that is desired is that there is unity among us. But there is a dilemma. There's a serious leadership dilemma that we see. I alluded to this earlier on. The pastor's self-understanding is described as clerical gnosia. Members' understanding of the pastor's role. Okay, what was their perception? Okay, when they look at a pastor, do they really say, we definitely need a pastor, or we can do without? Okay, administrative unit is an expectation. Apart from those that we are leading, how about those that are leading us? Okay, what are their expectations? Okay, so we tend to see this dilemma, we tend to see that this quagmire when it comes to leadership. John Nesbitt has this to say, a few signals that are needed for leadership. Leadership is a major concern of the 21st century church. It is a major concern. The moment you take away leadership, you'll have destroyed almost everything. Okay, there are issues of John Nesbitt's societal analysis underlines the importance of leadership. Okay, and there are quite a number of things that he actually listed. Okay, is some of the mega trends. For example, in ministry, authoritative ministry relating to human need. Are we really fulfilling the human need, be it socially, physically, mentally, spiritually, and otherwise? You can actually see a relationship with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as it were. But since we are talking about leadership, let me zero in on this one. Another mega trend is that of seeing global concerns, lifelong learning, post self-help programs. You talk about networking, facilitating lay participation, teaching for ethical decisions. Coming to the church manual on page 79, it has this to say: if the conference executive committee assigns the pastor or pastors to the congregation, the pastor or senior pastor, if more than one, should be considered the ranking officer and the local elders as assistants. So what are we saying here? The church manual is talking about the district pastor as the ranking officer. By ranking, we are saying the buck ends with you in pastoral duties in your district. Okay, leadership rests with you. Okay? You are like a referral person. You are like an elder in the New Testament context. Okay, you are a bishop, as it were. Everything rests with you. You will notice others are not church workers. They are not conference workers. But you and I, when we are working in the district, we are the ranking officers. In other words, we are supposed to direct activities. Okay, be it in terms of personal ministries, be it in terms of treasury, be it in terms of church clerks, be it in terms of this or that department, auxiliary organizations, you are the ranking officer. Am I still audible?
Yes, Doc.
Doc. Okay. Thank you so very much. All right, thank you very much. So it's good that I'm reachable, so I can proceed. Okay, thank you. So you and I are ranking officers. We are ranking officers in our district. Okay? You can actually read further expectations of the pastor whilst working with elders from the church mile. The pastor should not assume all lines of responsibility, but should share these with the elders and other officers. As you and I are working in our district, like I said earlier on in the morning, I do have 9 congregations. Okay, I'm the one who is responsible. I'm the ranking officer. Okay, but you know that as the ranking officer, I'm the one who is responsible with chairing of church boards, even chairing business meetings, church business meetings, as it were. Okay, I should always remember that I am the ranking officer. But as much, and yes, we are supposed to be doing this on a regular basis. But if you are pastoring multi-church districts, at times it may not be possible. Someone who is a senior youth, someone whose daughter was married or got married, others, they are of authority, others, they are festival heads, as it were. Some are winter heads, some are sub.
Screen, Doctor.
Hello?
We have lost your screen here.
Oh, you can't see. Okay, what if I do this? Are you able to see my screen?
Nothing. There's nothing here. It's not coming up.
Oh, all right. I don't know what has happened. Let me share again. Let me share again. Share screen. Should I say this is one of the signs of the second coming?
Yeah, it's now coming.
It's not coming.
It's not coming. Yeah, yeah, it's now there.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah, Korekwa.
Yeah.
How about this picture?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, thank you. So Ndandukta, about the expectation of the pastor that you are the ranking officer and you are supposed to be chairing church board. So I was giving an example of these heads. Thank you, Pastor, for the heads up. Of these different heads. Some are worn by teenagers, some by senior youths, some they are festival heads, as it were. Some are heads for cowboys, some are those whose daughters were asked in marriage, some are winter heads, some are heads of authority, some are for funny. Okay, so you can see when you look at those heads, those are the responsibilities of a pastor in a multi-church district. I'm reminded of an experience somewhere when I once pastored somewhere in one of the districts. I remember this particular day, there was a wedding and there was a funeral, and they were starting at the same time. So I decided to preach at the funeral. I did everything. And after board viewing, as people were going now to the graveyard, I had to assign that responsibility to my district elder to continue with the service at the graveyard. I had to leave for the wedding in the same district. Okay, so this moment you're celebrating, 5 minutes down the line, you're actually mourning. And you are supposed to change, even in terms of emotions, in terms of whatever is happening. Those are our responsibilities, clergy, especially those pastoring in a multi-church district. What am I saying? You need to share those responsibilities. If you and I don't share those responsibilities, if we don't delegate some of these responsibilities, we may end up having serious burnout. You may end up not even taking your annual leave days simply because you want to achieve. I'm reminded of a statement that Dr. Zebran Mule used to say, if you don't finish work, if you don't finish God's mission, that mission is going to finish you. And the truth of the matter is that you are not going to finish or complete the mission. Okay, what he was simply saying is we need to share our pastoral responsibilities, and we need to do that in an intelligent way. Still quoting from the same church manual, at times it may be advisable for an elder to act as chairperson with the approval of the pastor. There is a difference here of the elder chairing and eventually telling the pastor, actually last week we had a church board, or pastor, we are telling you we have a church board. When we're talking about approval, the ranking officer in this case, who is the pastor, should discuss the agenda items, should give the elder responsibility to work as the chairperson, not the other way around. Just the elder informing the pastor, by the way, we had a board yesterday. The pastor should approve. Why? Because the pastor is the ranking officer. He is the one who is responsible. I remember a few years ago when I was the executive secretary, when East Zimbabwe Conference was 2-1 before the division of the two conferences, North and East. There are certain issues that were taken by certain action that were taken by some boards, which were reversed up after they had appealed to the conference. One of the ticking issues was some of the boards were done without the approval of the pastor. And some people were removed from membership and others were censured. And yet the district pastor, the ranking officer, was not involved. Okay. So the pastoral work of the church should be shared by the pastor and the elders, and that should be done intelligently. Okay. As you read on the same church manual, in council with the pastor, the elders should do the following, or can do the following. Okay, they don't do this without a counsel from the pastor. By the way, ordinarily, all things being equal, when you read in the current church manual, if one has been elected or chosen or appointed to be an elder, they should not function up until they get ordained. Okay, I hope it's quickable. After being selected or chosen, appointed as an elder, what follows is ordination. After ordination, now you can call them elder. Okay, so it's in this context that in council with the pastor, elders can do the following: visit members. Okay, they can minister to the sick. Okay, they can foster prayer ministries. They can arrange or lead out in anointing services. So in other words, as you are sharing responsibilities, these are the duties ordinarily that the pastor was supposed to carry out, but he is now sharing the responsibility. Arrange or lead out in child dedications, okay? Encourage the disheartened, assist in other pastoral responsibilities, okay? But always remember, these are your duties, but you are now sharing, okay? As under shepherds, elders should exercise constant vigilance over the flock. They are under shepherd. They are working, be it under you, also under God. They are supposed to exercise vigilance at all times as they are leading, as they will be leading God's church. If the pastor is a licensed minister, let's say you have been appointed, if you check the current church manual, you have been appointed as a licensed pastor by the conference, and you are not a commissioned missionary, a commissioned pastor, as it were, you are not ordained. The manual says, if the pastor is a licensed minister, the church or churches served should elect the pastor as an elder. Okay, the church is involved, they come together, they elect you as an elder. Okay, and you have to be ordained. Of course, it's not one of the elders to ordain you. Okay, you'll have to do that in context or in consultation. They have to do that in consultation with the executive secretary's office or the ministerial secretary's office or the president's office. The president is in the head of the church, his office. Okay, so you need to seek that consent, and they're the ones to do the program, or they may designate that responsibility to any senior pastor if they are busy with other duties. I hope I've been heard twice here. Okay, so that you get ordained as an elder, not as a pastor. Okay, the ordination of you to be a pastor is a different game altogether. Okay, because the pastor is appointed to the position in the church by the conference. Remember, the pastor is appointed by the conference. He is not appointed by the respective church or by the respective district, as it were. So the pastor serves the church as a conference employee and is also responsible to the conference executive committee. He is not answerable to the church board, as it were, but he is answerable to the conference executive committee because he is an employee of the conference. But as much as you are responsible to the conference executive committee, the pastor should maintain a sympathetic and cooperative relation to the local church. In other words, ukama uri apa ndewe bandi nebhurukwa rechirume, trousers. Okay, we do have that relationship should be maintained so that we have peace. The pastor works in harmony with all the plans and policies of the local church. The assumption is the local plans and the local policies are feeding from the corporate policies that we have as a church, or cooperatively as a church. Okay, elders who are elected by the church are responsible to that body and to its body. Okay, so elders are responsible, or they are answerable, as it were, to the church board, of course, under the leadership of the pastor who was appointed by the conference or by the field, as it were. Other duties to be shared with elders. Okay, I'm going to be zeroing in the church manual here. Other duties that are supposed to be shared, okay, by the pastor, because you are the ranking officer. Church manual, page 8, conducting church services. Under the pastor, or in the absence of the pastor, an elder is responsible for the services of the church and must either conduct them or arrange for someone to do so. So in terms of coordination of all church activities or services, as it were, the elder can be given that responsibility. And check what the manual is saying. Under the pastor, okay, or in the absence of the pastor. So the pastor is the ranking officer. You are the one to give that responsibility to your local elder, as it were. Communion services must always be conducted by an ordained or commissioned pastor or local elder. It should always, chijgo or communion services, okay, must be conducted by the pastor or local elder. I remember one of my churches, as much as I have many churches, the elders, even the membership said, no, we cannot allow elders to coordinate this service. This is the pastor service. So as much as we are busy, let's strive to attend some of these duties. As much as we share with elders duties such as conducting communion services on a quarterly basis, okay? The pastor usually chairs the business meeting. Reading on from the church manual, page 80. You are the chairperson of the business meeting. At times, you may give this responsibility to your first elder, to one of your elders. We have the gift of sharing. I remember one of the districts that I pastored, it was around 1997. One of my senior elders was gifted in terms of chairing boards. I didn't even know how to chair boards. He was very good, even as business meetings, okay? Because where he was working, he was a board chair, and he was always chairing boards at his workplace. So I had to take advantage of that to say, what is it that we are going to do? Then I will say, okay, this is what we are going to do, and I would allow the elder to chair, but in my presence. And that way, I was able to learn a few issues, not a few, but a number of issues from my elder. But we are saying, the manual is saying, you are the chairperson of the business meeting, okay? In the absence of the pastor and with approval of the pastor or the conference president, an elder should serve as chairperson. So if the elder is to chair as the chairperson, the assumption is that the pastor will not be present, or that the pastor will have approved, or the conference president will have approved that the elder be allowed to chair the business meeting. Baptismal service. In the absence of an ordained pastor, an elder shall request the conference president to arrange for the baptism of those desiring to unite with the church. An elder should not officiate in the service without first obtaining permission from the conference president. Okay? This is the responsibility of the pastor to conduct baptismal service, assuming that one is an ordained pastor. If they are not ordained, they should get that authority from the conference through the relevant office. And the manual is saying here, if an elder, in the absence of the ordained pastor, if ever they are to conduct baptism, they shall request that authority from the conference president. The assumption is that the conference president is also going to take up the issue with his executive committee or ADCOM, depending with the terms of reference of the ADCOM. If the ADCOM is not empowered to do that, my assumption is it's not an assumption, it's there in our statutes. The executive committee should be able to deal with that. So the elders not wake up and say, I'm going to do baptism. For the next 3 months, I'm going to be baptized. No, they are given specific dates. Just like a licensed pastor, he is given specific days or a day to do that. Marriage ceremony. In a marriage ceremony, the charge, the vows, declaration of marriage are given only by an ordained pastor, except in those areas where division executive committees and what. Of course, elders can do that, but in our context, in the context of Zimbabwe, elders, if they are not marriage officers, even pastors, if they are not marriage officers, are not allowed to conduct a marriage. But they can pray for the marriage, they can do other issues, but they cannot declare that marriage to say you are now husband and wife, because the laws of the land do not authorize that if you are not a marriage officer. And also, the pastor is there to foster tithing.
10 minutes to go, Doctor.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
That's a lot. You and I are supposed to foster tithing. We are talking about shared responsibilities here. In our absence or even in our presence, your elder can do this. By faithfully retaining tithe, elders do much to encourage other members to retain a faithful tithe. Okay? As an elder, if they are to say, I'm retaining tithes here and offerings, that will act as an encourager or encouragement, as it were, to the general members. Elders can foster tithing by public presentation of the scriptural privilege and the responsibility of stewardship, and by personal labor with members in a tactful and a helpful manner. Okay, so they are leading by example. Okay, they are part and parcel of the congregation and hence leading out. Okay, and as they do that, remember, a few years ago we were talking about the Green Book. I don't know if you have it in the North Zimbabwe Conference or whatever system that you are using to check whether our members are retaining faithfully tithes and offerings. That elders, the manual says, elders should regard all financial matters pertaining to members as confidential and shall not give such information to unauthorized persons. Never ever say, no, this one, do them a 1,000, no, do them a $10. No, don't disclose financial matters pertaining to your members. That should be kept in a confidential manner. And this is your responsibility. This is my responsibility as a frontline pastor. But over and above that, you can share this responsibility with your elders to foster Bible study, prayer, nature, and spiritual growth of members. So as spiritual leaders, elders are responsible for encouraging members to develop a personal relationship with Jesus. Okay, no wonder why it's important that they do Bible studies on a daily basis, or even go through Bible chapter of the day, like Bible Fupiso, on a daily basis, to say these days we are reading from the book of Hebrews. Okay, and members or elders should foster that spirit of reading the Bible, that spirit of prayer, nurturing activity, so that by the end of the day they may be better. Okay, so they should inspire people to do the same. And overall, as elders, this is our responsibility, but we can share with them, with the elders, to foster all lines of work. Allow me to read this one, pages 80 to 81. Under and in cooperation with the pastor, elders are spiritual leaders of the church and are responsible for fostering all departments and activities of the work. Elders should maintain a mutually helpful relationship with other officers. Okay, there should be a good relationship or symbiotic relationship, as it were, with elders and other fellow officers of the local church. So all lines of church work, not to say, no, I'm just responsible for youth, I'm not concerned about these other departments. You are supposed to foster all lines of church work, then also cooperate with the conference in terms of all activities. The pastor, elders, officers should cooperate with conference officers and departmental directors in carrying out approved plans. Okay, so we need to cooperate and also foster worldwide work. We can share this responsibility and also be free to work effectively. Elders, especially, should be left free of other burdens to perform effectively. There are many duties, there are missionaries, and we should share such with them. As I conclude, allow me to quote from Psalm 133, verse 1. I guess you can identify one or two people from that picture, but I'm not worried about the picture. What I'm worried about is what the verses say. Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. As you work with your fellow elders sharing responsibilities, they should be the principle of unity that should be observed. If this was a marriage presentation, I would have said one of the principles of marriage is the principle of unity. Allow me to add and say, if we are talking about the pastoral shared duties with elders, one of the critical issues, it is the issue of a good and working, pleasant relationship among elders. Finally, allow me to say, whatever is good, whatever is pleasant, whatever is spiritual, think about these things. In the absence of the pastor, pastoral or ecclesiastical work should not suffer at the local church. Why? Because elders have been trained and they've been given these responsibilities. They've been sharing these responsibilities with the pastor. So you can safely go on annual leave if it's approved, simply because you know that work is not going to suffer. Your elders, your district committee, your church leaders are going to be doing the same duties that you have been doing, and we have trained them. Thank you so very much, and God bless you.